Welcome to the Learn Skin podcast with Dr. Raja and Dr. Hadar, where they discuss all things skin. Skin is fascinating because it affects us in so many ways, like our health, psychology, and how we connect with those around us. This podcast delves into the art and science of skincare. A short disclaimer before we get to the good stuff. Dr. Raja Sivamani and Dr. Hadar Levtov are board-certified dermatologists. This podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only. All opinions shared do not express the views of Learn Skin. Neither this podcast nor any information contained within it are a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. This podcast does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you have a medical concern, please consult with your physician.
Hey Raja, how are you today?
Hi Hadar, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Actually, I may be a little over good. I'm hearing a lot from my patients questions about cannabinoids. So I have usually the two types of patients. One are very eager. They say, hey doc, can I smoke weed for that? And I do have the other ones that tell me, hey doc, are you sure you want me to smoke weeds for that? So have you gotten any patients like that?
Well, I do have people asking me about the cannabinoid system, and I do have a couple people asking about weed, but there's more to the cannabinoid system than just marijuana. And we're lucky today because we have an expert, Dr. Jeanette Jacknin, board certified dermatologist, and probably one of the first practitioners to talk about integrative medicine within dermatology with us today. So we're in for a treat.
Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Jacknin, we'd like to welcome you to our podcast, and we're very excited to have you join us today to talk about the endocannabinoid system.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be part of your podcast.
Do you mind giving us a little bit of a background about the endocannabinoid system? There's so many questions about it, and people typically talk about its use for pain, but we clearly have a rich system for the skin. Can you talk about how you got into this area of work and what does the endocannabinoid system do for us?
Oh, sure. I originally have been a holistic dermatologist since I published my book, Smart Medicine for Your Skin, on Integrative Dermatology in 2001. But I got into CBD and topical CBD about 3 years ago. And I did originally, with all the herbals, I always try everything on myself. So originally I did get into it because of pain. I had some pain and I compared a CBD pain relief from a CBD cream versus the lidocaine strip that I'd been given by the doctor, the traditional doctor. And I was amazed that the CBD cream relieved my pain much faster and to a greater extent than the lidocaine, topical lidocaine. That's how I first was introduced to it, but then I immediately looked into PubMed to see what studies, double-blind studies, had been done around the world on CBD, which is different than hemp oil, which is different than THC, and topical application for anti-aging and for dermatologic problems like acne, psoriasis, eczema. And that's how I began to be introduced to this whole world of hemp and CBD and THC topically about 3 years ago. And since then, I've given 9 international talks about the science that's actually there. We hear anecdotes on the internet, but actually the science that has been discovered about the endocannabinoid system, and especially the endocannabinoid system in the skin. It came as a big shock to many scientists that we have this endocannabinoid system in our body that's natural. We have our own endocannabinoid receptors or cannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2, in virtually every tissue. And each is coupled with a protein called a G protein. Now, the CB1 receptors are mostly at nerve terminals where they mediate inhibition of neurotransmitter release. The CB2 receptors are found mainly on immune cells, and they're mostly to modulate cytokine release. But the body, no matter what legal system is outside of the body already has its own cannabinoid called anandamide, which was discovered in 1992. And we also have other cannabinoids. Now, I'll just go into a little more about the endocannabinoid system before I go into the difference between CBD, other cannabinoids, hemp, and THC.
Great.
The endocannabinoid system, there's actually a whole endocannabinoid system just in the skin. And it helps to regulate the production of various hormones and proteins, the cytokines, which are involved in the immune response. This was actually discovered in 2014 by Katerina, working in Johns Hopkins. And since then, there's been a lot more study on that. But so endocannabinoid system has actually been found to be the most widespread and versatile signaling system ever discovered. And so the skin is involved. Actually, there's CB1 and CB2 receptors in the skin, and they're found in sebaceous glands, they're found in the epidermis, they're found in the immune cells like the Langerhans cells, they're found in the hair follicle, they're actually found in the smallest sensory nerves. So this is amazing that it's throughout the entire skin and each appendage.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's really incredible.
And
it was actually so recently discovered, 2015, by Mauro Macaroni. I mean, it's like, almost yesterday.
Right, and I think there's a lot of confusion between THC and CBD. Can you tell us about the difference between those two?
Sure. Now, there's also confusion around the word cannabis sativa. Cannabis sativa is actually the plant, which is the father or mother of both the hemp plant and the marijuana plant. It's the same plant, but over centuries and millennium, the hemp plant was produced to get for fiber, for energy, for food. And the THC or the marijuana plants were produced more to get a high or mystical or spiritual experience, but they came from the original same plant. It was decided, more or less arbitrarily, that hemp plants contain less than 0.3% THC. And THC is the active ingredient in marijuana or cannabis that makes one feel high or have a spiritual high or a change in distortion of reality. So that's kind of a little bit arbitrary. In some of the other countries, it's 0.2%, but in the United States, it's 0.3%. And what happened was that CBD was not that well known in 2014 when there was a farm bill where people could actually farm hemp in this country. Then in December of 2018, a federal farm bill was passed. So federally, people could grow hemp. And what they found is that they wanted the CBD, which is one of the over 130 cannabidiols that are in hemp and cannabis and marijuana. But the CBD itself has more of the immune modulating, hormone modulating properties and does not get people high. So therefore, legally, and most people wanted the CBD and without the side effect of getting high or feeling drunk or feeling stoned.
Right.
So that's how that came about.
Yeah, and that's the one that's probably more useful to us in medicine, the CBD one.
Much more useful because it has, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that's how I remember THC as the high cannabinoids. It stands for the high cannabinoid. It's a good memory tool for our listeners.
Well, when it comes to cannabidiol, Jeanette, can you talk a little bit more about what are the kind of differences that we might find from, because there's so many products out there with CBD and cannabidiol. Can you talk about what are the differences in products and how does it act on the skin? What is it that it's doing in the skin?
Well, I think the first thing that buyers need to be aware about is, since this craze in the last year, people have been marketing things as cannabis sativa oil. And the uninformed would think that that has a lot of CBD in it, but it doesn't. It's just hemp oil. Hemp oil is great as a moisturizer. It has a lot of omega-3, a lot of omega-6, but if it comes from the hemp seed, it has virtually no CBD unless CBD is added to it, a CBD isolate. So the first thing is to be wary of things marketed just as cannabis sativa oil. That is hemp oil without added CBD. The CBD has been studied and shown to be effective topically in one study in acne and in other studies in eczema and psoriasis because it has anti-inflammatory properties, but it also works directly on immune modulators and on other transmitters in the system. So things that have a CBD isolate in the cannabis sativa oil are fine. They are considered CBD products. But if it's hemp oil, it's going to have minimal, or hemp seed oil, it'll have minimal CBD. Now, legally, the THC, if it's greater than 0.3%, it needs to be declared such and sold in, depending on the state, a dispensary or other location like that. Does that help to explain it?
Absolutely. And I think just going a little bit more in depth with these products, is there a way to then think about high quality versus lower quality products? I know you mentioned that there may be differences in the cannabidiol that's present in a product. Is that the main way that you decide on product quality, or are there other factors that we need to take into account as well?
Well, there are two factors that can be a CBD isolate, or it can be from the whole plant. Now, the whole plant, to me, I like that better because it has the other cannabinoids in there, and there's at least 130. And even though CBD is the most, the one that has the greatest concentration of all the cannabinoids in the plant, we are just discovering what CBDA it does, CBC, CBG, CBN, all these other cannabinoids. So if you like the whole plant, to me, I like that because it has all the other cannabinoids that we don't even know the positive things that they can be doing. We're just beginning to find out. And the other thing I counsel people is to look for how many milligrams or grams of CBD are in the product. It should say right on the label, how many. It should clearly say on the front of the label how much is in there. And then on the back packaging, if you look at the ingredients from top to bottom, the top ingredient or the first couple ingredients are the ones that are in the highest concentration. If you see CBD down at the very bottom of the ingredients or near the bottom of the list or something like that, it's really not going to be in a high concentration. The main problem is it's not FDA regulated. So like in the supplement industry, very similarly, what may be on the packaging may not be inside the bottle.
I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned the anti-inflammatory and immune modulatory effects of CBD, what kind of evidence exists for using CBD in skin diseases? Where do you think the level of evidence is that practitioners should consider CBD as part of their armamentarium for treating skin diseases?
Well, I think it's very convincing from multiple studies from multiple countries and not associated with clinical product or a company, but actual pure research. For example, with acne, it's not that long ago, like 11 years ago, Zubulis in another country found that the endocannabinoids actually influence the differentiation of the sebasites so that they have an action on sebum. And follow-up studies were done like in Pakistan, across the world by Ali and Akhtar. They used a 3% cannabis cream to one side of the face 2 times a day for 12 weeks. And they noticed a big decrease in the sebum and the erythema in the acne patients who were treated versus the ones that weren't. So there have been approximately many more studies done on acne. Ola is a very big researcher out of Eastern Europe, and he has done a lot of work on that. There's been studies done on itch, at least 3 studies by different researchers around the world on using topical CBD or something called PEA, which stimulates anandamide and works on the cannabinoid 1 receptors. And that actually really helps with itch, which is a component of many skin problems, as we know. And there's at least 5 studies internationally. They are all done in different countries. So there's no collusion with a company who has a product out there. And then hemp seed oil itself has been used for eczema internally and externally with studies to document that. But actually using cannabinoids in eczema, there's at least 4 to 5 studies that show different mechanisms of action of the CBD, the cannabidiol, or the PEA in atopic dermatitis. So it's not working by just one mechanism. Each one of these researchers investigated different mechanisms of action and over the past 10 years in mice and some in humans, and for eczema and mechanisms of action. And similarly for psoriasis, about 6 studies have been done, 7 studies in the last 15 years by researchers around the world to show that it demonstrates not only CBD, but topical THC, and including CBN and CBG. So some of these other lesser known cannabinoids have helped with the treatment of psoriasis, again, by multiple different mechanisms. So I'm very thankful that I think research is going to open up a lot and be more productive this year and following years with better sources of CBD and THC, and just to legalize it and allow people to study this, a system that's already in our body.
Well, I think this is a great point to stop and say thank you. I think you've painted a picture of a lot of potential. Certainly, we understand a little better about the internal system we all carried in our skin and didn't even realize until not too long ago. We now know a little better how to shop for these products, and certainly you've illustrated elegantly some of the cases that we see in clinic quite a bit that we may consider that. Again, there's still some challenges ahead, sounds like it, but it sounds like we're moving in the right direction. And certainly I think we both thank you for being such a pioneer, not only for CBD, but also for integrative dermatology, which I think, again, is a great point to mention your useful website, drjacknin.com. And I would encourage people to visit that website. And also, we're very fortunate to have you speak at the Integrative Dermatology Symposium. So with that, I would like to thank you. Again, this was Dr. Jeanette Jacknin talking to us about CBD in skin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in with Dr. Raja and Dr. Hadar. This podcast is brought to you by Learn Skin, leaders in integrative dermatology education. Visit learnskin.com/podcast to explore our many programs. Subscribe today and never miss an episode.